So I want to start out by asking you guys, how did you guys find out about the ABC program? So let's go back to middle school when you guys were looking for high schools. You were looking for places to go. What attracted you to the ABC program? And I'll ask this question to anyone. David, Will, Osaze, what attracts you to the ABC program?
I feel like we should start off with seniority. Who's the oldest between you two?
Oh, wow.
This is easy.
So we're going there, okay.
I'm by far the oldest. Thank you. Thank you, Jelani, Daryl, Kwaku, and Devon for creating this platform and allowing the old guy to put on a collar shirt, you know. I'm so used to t-shirts nowadays and tank tops, so right. Thank you for this. My background, just growing up in the Lower East Side, was attracted to the program by my mother. My mother's a school teacher at a local junior high school in Chinatown in Manhattan. And she's been there for over 30 years. Her colleague, Francis Young, is a guidance counselor, and he's been promoting the ABC program for decades. When I became of age, he came to my mother and he pretty much pushed the ABC program upon myself. He said, listen, this is a great opportunity. It's going to essentially catapult your son into his future. It's going to put him ahead of his peers. And he kept on promoting since I was in 6th grade. So funny enough, actually, I tried the New York City public school system. I was at Brooklyn Tech for 1 year. I did well academically, but I think I was lacking some of the guidance and some of the push that he felt that the ABC program provides. And that's when he asked me or had another conversation with my mother, and he suggested I go ahead and sit down for the exams.
Incredible, incredible. David? Oh, I think you just got to unmute your mic there. There you go.
Since I'm the middle child here, I'll go. So for me, it was a middle school guidance counselor. In fact, we got called over the PA system, about 3 or 4 of us into the office, and we're like, well damn, what do we do? But the guidance counselor was there to tell us about ABC and what it can offer, and gave us packets and the application, and then we brought it home to our parents to discuss with them what it was and if we thought it might be something that we would like to do. I applied initially for local New York City public schools as well, because my mother didn't really want me going away to school yet, which I could understand. And then I didn't get in, and I spent a year at Mount Vernon High School in Mount Vernon, New York. And my mother saw, this isn't the best situation for my son. So I reapplied again, this time for community school programs, sent my application out to a bunch of different places, but Canaan called me back, and the rest is history.
Incredible, incredible. And Osaze?
My experience is a little bit different from Williams and David's. I actually seek the ABC program out myself. I always wanted to go to boarding school. I applied to a couple of different programs like Prep 9 and the Teak Fellowship. Did the tremendous amount of testing that it took to even get considered for any of those programs. After I didn't get the results that I wanted, I got into I was placed in a school, but not the school that I really wanted to. I was still trying to seek out another program that I can do, and then ABC was one that I came across. And since I had all of the testing already done, it was as simple as sending in an application. At first, I really did not want to do the CSP program. I compared it with the boarding school program. I thought it was going to be kind of terrible, honestly. I had the idea of a boarding school, and the CSP kind of didn't fit that image for me. But ABC didn't place me in a boarding school, and they placed me in New Canaan at the CSPs. And so once I visited there, my mom was like, give it a try, you don't know, let's see. I was very distraught. I was kind of denouncing the entire thing. But my mom really pushed me to actually give it a shot. And I visited and actually enjoyed the town. It was the first time I saw huge houses. I was really starstruck by that kind of wealth, I think. And I think my mom saw that as well. And she was like, I hope that you chose this for the right reasons. That's always stuck with me for the
Yeah.
longest time.
Yeah, and you know, it seems as though we all have very unique experiences when it came to how we found out about the ABC program. And I'll chime in, you know, myself. It was around, I think, 7th to 8th grade when I was, you know, going through the high school process, and my parents came across the ABC program along with my middle school guidance counselor at the time, and I was very open to the idea of going away to school, but didn't know necessarily how to go about it. And so the ABC program, after doing research, kind of gave me this interest, if you will, to going off to boarding school or maybe a private school of some sort. And the ABC House of New Canaan reached out to me for an interview, and the rest was history. Which kind of leads me to my next question for all of us. Do you remember that first day when you moved into the ABC House of New Canaan, what that was like, and just that experience overall? Because I know for me, it was a nerve-wracking experience. When you're coming in, there's 7 other teenage boys there from different backgrounds and different cultures. Do you remember what that first day was like for you guys, and how that's kind of changed your thinking overall about high school and just the program in general?
I'll start first.
Yep.
Before the school year started, actually, we went away as a group of incoming ABC scholars, and I don't remember. It's been a while. We went away at a camp essentially, and we got to meet other kids from other schools, and essentially people raised their hands. And they said like, "Who's going to New Canaan?" And you got together. And so my incoming year, we had 5 students, 4 freshmen, and myself as a sophomore, and I guess that sort of bridged the first day in New Canaan, but I'm very visual, very sensual. So in terms of, I can sort of still smell New Canaan, getting out of the ABC house on top of the hill. I remember it being a really hot summer day, smelling very different than the Lower East Side of Manhattan, walking to a really big house, having, a massive kitchen compared to like a small apartment in essentially Chinatown. And the transition, it was nerve-wracking. Once again, because obviously I'm Chinese. Everybody else was either Latino or Black, and I stood out. But yet I could still relate because we sort of grew up in a very similar environment, and we were connected in terms of that we were all, I wouldn't say alpha, but we were all determined to succeed, and we were trying to essentially either compete or help each other out doing so. But we were ready to start off the school year right away.
Yeah. Osaze?
Yeah, my first memory of ever stepping foot in New Canaan, or actually stepping foot in New Canaan after I was accepted to the program, was they invited the 2 new freshmen, so that was me and Kwaku, back during a fundraising event. And that fundraising event was the car wash. And we reflecting upon it now, I think I'm like more questioning why exactly that was our first interaction with the town, washing other people's cars. I know it was for fundraising, I know it was for us, but as young kids coming in, that initial experience, the way that people sort of like pulled up to us and started like grilling us, asking us questions, things like that. It was like William said, it was nerve-wracking, and it was nerve-wracking in a different way because immediately in my mind, I was getting the assumption that I was going to be expected to perform, not only academically but socially and within the town, in order to fund my actual being there. So that was interesting. That was interesting. The one thing from the day that I remember though is immediately how tight-knit the boys seemed. And I knew that coming in, like as the new kid, I would take a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to penetrate that bond, but it really didn't. Devon sort of like in his silent, graceful way, kind of opened his arms to Kwaku and I and included us in the day, making sure that we had a role because we were kind of walking around with our heads cut off like chickens, and ultimately made it an enjoyable day, just being with the boys. I wasn't so thrilled about washing cars.
Mm-hmm. All right, and David?
I mean, the first day, I mean, well, because the whole process is you go out there initially during the previous school year for your interview and for a day within the school to at least see what the school is like and what that experience would be like. And I guess also for the boys to look at you and see like how you would be able to adapt. I was already used to, New Canaan in terms of like the things that I wasn't expecting to see. It's a town that had its own Starbucks and, all these different things that I like would have never imagined for a town,
Mm-hmm.
So if anything, I had more of a nervous energy. I had never met, I would call them my host parents then. I call them my second family now. I'm just like, who's this family? Who are they going to be? Where am I staying? All like, it's like the first day
Right.
of college,
And that actually leads me to my next question. So, I mean, the host families, they were a huge part of our experience. Shout out to the Hearst family. Those were my host family, Richard, Wendy, Teddy, Louisa, and Georgie. And they really provided me this opportunity to get acclimated with the town, right? So, of course, you have the ABC house, which is, it's all of us, and of course, the resident directors, but the host family allowed us to get familiar with other people that were in the town. For you guys and anyone to just chime in, what was that experience like?
Well, I would say that I remember when trying to explain to people what a host family was, we would say like, they're our home away from home.
Right.
And that was the best thing that we could use to describe that. We weren't necessarily sure how else to describe it. But looking back on my time there, that's 100% what it was. When you're in the house, you're with your boys and it's cool and
Right.
but you still got to do study hall. You still got your homework to do. There's still a regimen. You got your chores, stuff like that. So it's not the same. When I went to my host family house, it was just, I got to be one of their kids. I got to just relax. I got to just watch TV or, do different things. I got to be more of a typical 14, 15-year-old boy. I just so happen to be in a house that's not mine, but I have my own room. I have a place in this family, and that, thinking about that, that was really, it's a really great thing that we had, because, also the host family can help you understand the different dynamics of a town, of the town, who to talk to, who not to talk to, who's a
Exactly.
connection, who isn't a connection. And I've my host family or my second family, I've branched off from them and have even more people within New Canaan that I know and know me, ask about me, check in on me, make sure that I'm doing well. If I need anything, they'll be right there. So it helped create its own community, by having a host family.
Absolutely, absolutely. Will Osaze?
We both did the same gesture. Okay. Yeah. My host family, Bosses. I don't know if you're watching, but love you guys. They were great. They were like David said. It really is kind of a home away from home. It's really an escape from the program. I mean, you're still in the program. You're still binded to those rules, but the daily regimen is slowed down a little bit once you're in that space. That's not necessarily the norm. I can't say that is always the case, but for my host family, it definitely was. I oftentimes I remember when I first moved in, I was like always sleeping a ton, and my host mom like kind of was worried that I was like sleeping too much. but then I think she like, as I continued through the program and seeing how many things that an ABC kid has to do day in, day out, a lot more than what her kids are asked to do within her family. I think she realized that the space that the host families provides is really like a rest and recuperation space. It's a time for you to sort of relax, unwind, calm down, put on the Sunday football game with your host dad or something like that, which we really enjoy doing, and really get to have a bit of family time with someone, with a family who isn't necessarily your family, but who is welcoming you as such.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Also, shout out to Jeff and Melinda. I know you're watching. Love you.
And Will?
The figures are pretty awesome. Shout out to my own host parents, Pat and Michael Corey, and my host brother Andrew. They're all in Seattle now. Hopefully they're watching at some point or another. For me, my transition was a little harsh in the sense that I really missed my friends and family back home, and I sensed that my host parents were more of a nurturing environment for me. However, like Saze and David mentioned, it's a different set of rules, and you abide by those set of house rules. And one good example is, might be dating myself, but like when The Simpsons like first came on back then, we weren't allowed to watch it at the Corey's household because she deemed that some of the language was a little harsh for somebody else 15. Obviously, you would operate under those set of house rules, but it's a great nurturing environment. Love my host brother. We played basketball together. I still remember like the first day I was in there, my host father picked me up and we went straight to the garage, the driveway. We shot hoops for about an hour or two, and then we had dinner. And I'm like, this is what Sunday's about: shooting basketball and grabbing dinner from Post Corner Pizza. You know, and this is like some of my favorite days out there in New Canaan.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I guess we can all agree here, host families really helped us get acclimated to the community. It's one thing, again, when you're at the ABC house and you're, communicating and you're having fun with the other ABC guys and stuff, but when you are with your host family, it brings out a whole different element to the experience. Which brings me to my next question about the school itself. So if we think about New Canaan High School, right? I think for a lot of us, we've had very unique experiences when it came to that. Just feeling comfortable, I guess, in our own skins and getting used to the curriculum, also meeting new friends. For me, I remember the first day at New Canaan High School was a very scary experience. I remember walking into that cafeteria when, the school buses, they would drop you off right near the cafeteria, and you walk right in, and it's all these kids there. And it was just a crazy experience for me. I was like, wow, I've never been around so many kids at one time. I went to a smaller middle school. It was at most, I think, 90 kids in my grade. And then you walk in and there's like close to 500 of them in the cafeteria. Do you guys remember your first day at New Canaan High School and how maybe challenging it was, or maybe easy for you guys to get acclimated to the curriculum a bit?
So for me, my first day of school was actually pretty awesome. Not gonna lie. I don't know. I know my experience is very particular, but I know that, I walk into school day one. First of all, I wanted to make sure that everybody knew I wasn't from there. So I had my, had my South Pole shirt on, my baggy jeans on, all that stuff, trying to stand out in that way. But one of the best things ever was this girl came up to me and was like, hey, are you an ABC student? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, we know about ABC students. My name is so-and-so. These are my friends. Like, great to have you, and so on and so forth. So I actually had a lot of people, at least the older students, who knew about the program. So it wasn't weird for them seeing me around the place. And then I also was lucky because my host brother at the time, Jack, he was a senior. So I kind of had like this little extra clout in that I knew a senior, we were cool. So I got to meet like senior friends. I couldn't walk down the senior ramp for those who had that, but I couldn't walk down that. But, that really helped the transition for me because it was a little bit less about the social aspect of it. Okay, the people know me, it's not awkward. Now I can really focus on why I'm really here, which is the academics, That doesn't mean that there weren't issues, there aren't girlfriend things, and there aren't, weird social things that happen because you're Black, because they're white, the N-word, all that stuff. But, at least that first day of school, I felt like, okay, I can do this. I can definitely do this.
Absolutely, absolutely. How did you guys cope with not seeing yourself reflected anywhere but in the ABC house?
I guess I'll go here. I'm another unique one because my representation wasn't in the ABC house and barely even represented in the town of New Canaan. I think there were 4 or 5 Asian kids, Asian students in New Canaan. Some of them might have been half Asian, half Caucasian. But coincidentally, I met some of my good friends from there, and it was essentially one of the first person I latched onto. One of my good buddies, Chris Menimbo, who's half Filipino and half Irish, and he's a good buddy of mine. We've been friends for ever since, and we were the 2 new students. We both came in as sophomore. He came from one of the private schools in Stanford, and I still remember the first day I was on my host brother's hip. I had nobody to associate with. All the other 4 freshmen played freshman football, and I did not. So I was on my host brother's hip, and when we sat down, he introduced me to his friends. Once again, still a lot of anxiety being the new kid, 14, 15, not really knowing the environment, and didn't really see anybody that looked like me or anybody I could go to similar to me. Coincidentally, I found my buddy Chris, who was also half Asian, and we stuck together that way. And I guess we became one of my allies, one of my good friends ever since. And we had very similar interests. We played basketball together. And that was, I think, a big coping mechanism for me, just finding friends that were similar to me.
Absolutely. Osaze?
I feel as though I kind of want to go back to that first question about coming in the school the first day, because I feel as though playing sports was kind of a nice icebreaker for you for that first day, because you came in with sort of like the people that you've met on the football team, a team sport, so on the football team, or people that played soccer, they knew the soccer kids. So you came into that. You came in with that network sort of already kind of being built. One thing that was a little bit off-putting though was the amount of information that people kind of already know about you from being an ABC student. They, the assumptions are
For you, was it a good
plentiful.
or bad thing? Those assumptions.
It was a bad thing. It was a bad thing because it didn't allow me to tell my story as how I would want to put it. I was always having to correct the record, as opposed to me saying, I'm Osaze, I'm from New York. It was always like, oh, I know you, you're an ABC kid. I know that you're from X, Y, and Z. I know that you did this, that, and the other thing, blah, 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 blah. And while some of the things might be accurate, other things might not be. And having to spend a lot of time, I'm not really remembering my first day, but, my first couple of weeks or months coming into the school, having to constantly correct that record, gets a little bit frustrating, or it got a little bit frustrating for me. One thing that I do really enjoy though was, like I said, making those friends with the football team and stuff. You really feel like you have a group of people that you can go to in the cafeteria, or during a free period. If you didn't necessarily have to be alone per se if you didn't want to, because it's 2-a-days for a week before school starts will make you close with anyone. I guarantee you that. So it was a bit of a mixed bag for me personally. Elijah, what was the second question? I'm sorry.
So my second question was, how did you cope with not seeing yourself reflected anywhere but in the house? And what I mean by that is, if we look at it from an existential standpoint, aside from just us being minorities, if you will, did you see yourself reflected in any other aspect, whether at the ABC house or whether it was with your host parents or just at the high school?
I was able to gel with people who I felt were like me personality wise. If we are to step away from the race aspect of this, personality wise, it was very easy to sort of gel with people who were equally as competitive, who loved sports, who follow the New York Yankees, things like that. Those kind of things that, right, David? Those things that make it easier to sort of like relate and talk to people. And you kind of get a sense of reflecting like, oh, this kid thinks like me, even though we look differently, he sort of like approaches the world in a very similar way that I do. Skin color wise, obviously, the representation isn't there. And so you really have to look to the elder people within the house. Elijah, you were kind of a legend leaving the house as I was coming in. And, you know, we were always told, you know, that was an example that we should follow. Devon was the in-house example that we should follow. And so while I wasn't really necessarily looking for anybody in the high school to, you know, represent me, so to speak, because I felt like I had a good backing in the house.
Mm. Interesting.
So for me, I feel like first of all, to Will's point, there was a summer event that they held for new incoming ABC students. It was like a weekend thing. We stayed over at like, I think Kent or something like that. And we had seminars, you know, there were seminars about time management. There were seminars about, you know, social things, you know, the things that you're more than likely going to have to deal with in these communities, the people that don't really know you or don't really see you. And their best reference is television, because even then the internet wasn't as big as it is now, you know? So for me, going into the school to not see myself represented didn't surprise me. And in fact, I kind of thought of that was like the price of admission, you know, that you're going into a place where you're not represented. So can you really expect them to, you know, have those things that make you feel more comfortable necessarily? You know, I didn't go into it expecting it. So it just kind of, you know, met my expectation of it not being there, and I moved on from there. Funny story though, is I think my junior year, a new teacher came in, this woman, I think she taught science, and she was married to a Black man. And one, she kind of took to me and Rodney, my junior counterpart, and checking in on us a lot. And then one day in February, she put up those Black History Month posters that you see back in school of, like, you know, Lewis Latimer and, you know, Martin Luther King and stuff. And me and Rodney are like, oh God, no. Like, don't do that to us, because we were worried that it was going to bring some undue attention to us. You know, it's not that we're not proud of who we are, because we obviously were, but we had already gotten to a place in the school where we were David and Rodney. Yeah, they're Black or whatever the case is, but we're not going to harp on that. You know, we got this lab to do. We got this English homework to do. You know, things like that. Like, we wanted to be known for our work ethic, and so on and so forth.
You wanted to feel normal, like you were part of the community, like exactly. You wanted to be known for who you were, right? Your name, what you represent, absolutely.
Right, and we didn't want to be singled out for that thing, because then it puts us in these awkward situations where now we gotta maybe talk about the more difficult things that we don't necessarily want to talk about. At the end of the day, I just say that we did not have the tools to have conversations like this now, you know?
So let me ask you this. What do you think are some of the tools that we should implement in the ABC program now, or, you know, for future generations that could make that transition easier? Because I think that we all kind of share that culminating experience where it's tough to adjust to the high school. It's tough to adjust to the program in a lot of ways. What are some of the tools you think that we should implement to make that transition easier for us?
Well, the first thing that needs to be implemented is the letter that was written to the New Canaan public school system about, you know, infusing more, first of all, Africa and African history into the curriculum from elementary school all the way up to high school. Because I remember there was an Africa unit in my history book. we never touched it.
Never,
You
it
know?
wasn't talked about much. Nope.
And we kind of talk about Egypt kind of as if Egypt isn't in Africa, and that's not true either, you know? So we need to first make sure that the school system has, you know, that curriculum in there to give kids some history, some perspective. I think that's going to help things, and then also infuse, like, you know, what systematic racism is or systemic racism is, pushing for, you know, an anti-racist kind of mentality and outlook in life, because, you know, by giving kids tools that early, they can use them when they get older. So when they see something that's not supposed to happen, they can now feel confident that they know the right thing to do, and they feel confident enough to do that thing. You know, that would definitely help students, obviously. But as for us as students, I mean, it's difficult because what can you do? You know, like I said, I thought it was the price of admission. I knew I wasn't going to be understood all the time. So I prepared myself for that and prepared myself to explain myself a lot. That happened from time to time, but I was able to avoid that for the most part. So I'm actually curious to hear what the other guys think could be, you know, good solutions.
Yeah, if I can chime in here. I agree with what you said, David. I also feel as though a lot of people within the high school are familiar with the program because they have interacted with other people who have gone through it, but they don't know the program. And so they kind of approach with a sense of familiarity that they that they have from other people that they know that went through the program, who they may have been friends with, but then they sort of place it on these new kids who are now adapting to a scenario, now adapting to a new environment, and it gets overwhelming because you're asking them to constantly explain themselves and constantly um, um, attest for representing your race, essentially. I think one of the things that can be done from a school perspective is just a little orientation about what exactly the ABC program is and how do you approach a young kid, a young teenager who is entering into a new school. You don't bombard them with all of this pressure to sort of explain themselves, to adapt. You need to create an environment around them where they can adapt themselves. And whether that means protecting.
Looks like sorry, no, we just looked like we
Sorry?
lost you for a bit. No, looks like we lost you for a bit. You're back. You're back.
If that means protecting a student in a classroom environment that, I don't know, if you're talking about Huck Finn and someone saying the N-word repeatedly because that book is littered with it, maybe it's on the teacher to say, hey, even though that this is a word that's in our text and we want to stay true to the text, we shouldn't be saying this we shouldn't be saying it point blank. It's not a word that we can sort of commonly use in a classroom right now. There are other scenarios in which you're kind of just one-on-one with a student, and that's when you sort of have to rely on your own knowledge, on your own personal skills to sort of navigate scenarios when there isn't an adult present. But those scenarios are few and far between, and often I feel like those scenarios are really about understanding or explaining, as opposed to, you know, just general antagonizing of an individual, if I'm being clear. There are times that I remember in which I wish that an adult who was within an earshot would step into a conversation or into an argument or something like that, and just kind of like preside over the discussion space, just so that it doesn't get in a contentious space. But I feel like you know, people rely on their knowledge of the ABC program and of previous ABC scholars, and so, you know, we often are assumed, or it's assumed of us, that we're going to be fine, that they'll handle themselves, they'll be good. And But we also see the alternative when that kind of doesn't happen and a student isn't adapting very well and gets kicked out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Will, do you want to chime in with that?
Yeah, well, full candor, David and I speak regularly. David's on the national board of ABC, and I've been in and out of the ABC board either as a board member or a friend of the board as a alumni liaison for the past 10 years or so. And we talk about this constantly in terms of how we can get alumni involved. And I think to Asazi's point, and I've heard Asazi's story on the Instagram stories in the past. And I think there are definitely things that we could change on the NCH level, on the town level, and obviously within the board itself, the program itself. We want to implement possibly a mentorship program, whether it's a senior within the school program, a senior to a freshman, or maybe a young alumni, or maybe even an elder alumni, where we can have full, candid conversations about what they're going through. And if there are things and events that slip through, hopefully we could correct it before it gets any worse. And that's the whole point of this, right? It's just trying to identify certain situations, certain vulnerabilities that we might have, and we could catch this. But as in terms of like going back to like some of our experiences, you know, back then in terms of Osaze going in, and I feel for Osaze when you walk in and you're like an instant celebrity, but it's not always a good thing because what they know about you may not necessarily always be correct. And they make assumptions based on what little information they know. Back then, internet wasn't really around back then when I was there. So the town didn't really know who I was. And matter of fact, I didn't really see race. A lot of them just thought I was another New Canaan kid that just, you know, this ABC kid. They didn't think I was an ABC kid. They thought I was part of New Canaan or the surrounding area. So a lot of times my difficulty in adjusting was me being a new kid in the block as opposed to me being a person of color in the town of New Canaan. And I'm sure there were events that affected me that were racially driven, but I sort of just put it to the side. And I think that if we had a mentorship program or any kind of program where I could have candid conversations with somebody else, an elder, that change can be implemented almost immediately and squashed.
Yeah, I really like that idea. A mentorship program, I think that is very much so needed at a time like this, because I think that a lot of the students who are there now don't really see the big picture necessarily. I remember when I was in the program, I didn't necessarily have an idea of what would necessarily be the end result. I remember, yes, you go off to college and you get a great job after that, but what does that look like? And I think that if the students who are currently in the program now could talk to alumni like us, they can actually see that their hard work eventually does pay off. Dave, looked like you was about to say something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first I'll say, you know, after graduating from New Canaan High School, I tried to come back. I came back for almost every fundraiser to try and see the boys, make sure the program was doing well. I gave speeches, you know, I honored my host parents when there was a host parent award and so on. I tried, but, you know, I think back then the feeling was that I need to see you directly. I need to be there in order to, you know, converse with you and, you know, try and help people. So, I saw you guys before and I'd be like, hey, how you doing? How's school? You know, what's the college thing looking like? Is everything good? Are you all right? But that's all you got from me in that one moment. And having a mentorship program would be great to help elongate that. And then also too, like, we don't necessarily have to be there in person anymore. COVID has taught us that Zoom works just fine. You know, it's not the best, but it's better than nothing. And what we were kind of do before was close to nothing, you know. But I can also say that from the ABC national end, because I'm on the National Advisory Council to Council of Alumni that try and help ABC raise money, but also bring awareness to different things. ABC National has a new president. I like him a lot. I think that he has seen and noticed a lot of the things that CSPs really need in order to go the next step, you know, the support that they're really lacking. And I've talked with him a little bit about that. He is gung-ho on it all. Unfortunately, again, COVID came in and kind of messed everything up.
Yeah.
So once they figure out what to do with CSP students when it comes to, you know, remote learning or not necessarily remote learning, you know, every state's different, this and that. Once they figure that out and have like a good plan on that, then we will start figuring out a more robust alumni network, more events for students to meet alumni. And then on top of that, more support before, during, and after their high school experience or their ABC experience if they are middle school students, you know, as well. But we're definitely working on it. I am staying on top of it. I just had a call with the president last week. So like, we're staying on top of it. We're going to try and make sure that this is something that we really invest in and give the resources that the boys and the women need in order to fully succeed and feel supported, which is necessary.